Hello, and welcome back to the Carbon Capture Magazine podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Piekarski, and I am joined today by Elliott, Senior Project Geologist at SCS Engineers. Candy, welcome to the podcast, and thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Danielle. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So Candy will be presenting at the National Carbon Capture Conference being held November 7th and 8th in Des Moines, Iowa, and she will present on a panel titled Successfully Navigating the Complex Permitting and Monitoring Requirements for Carbon Capture and Storage Projects, which will take place at 9 a.m. on Wednesday, November 8th. Candy, your presentation will focus specifically on carbon capture and sequestration as it relates to environmental justice. Could you explain in further detail what topics you'll be covering?
Sure. I'm going to be discussing how the information that we gather can affect the application, the Class 6 application. And I'm also going to discuss where we get these data and how we present them.
Okay, and could you provide some insights on how data related to environmental justice concerns is collected and sourced for these projects, and what type of data we're looking at here?
Sure. So there are a number of different data sources that we use. Probably the most obvious is EPA's EJ screen, which is an interactive tool that can provide a number of different metrics. It's an overall tool. It gives you insight into, for example, a radius of 1 or 2 or 5 miles of a proposed injection site, and will tell you some information about the demographics of the area, any sensitive receptors that may be within the area, and helps you target your community outreach. Now, those data are supported by information from the U.S. Census Bureau data tables and also from the Climate and Economic Justice website. These provide a little more granular detail than the EJ screen. And these data are all compiled and used to reflect the conditions and help us guide our community outreach.
Okay, so regarding community outreach, how can implementing proven technologies and techniques benefit CCS projects in terms of the permitting and construction goals?
Well, EPA requires, as part of a Class 6 application, that's assuming EPA has primacy in that state, but they do require an environmental justice report. And this report encompasses, as I mentioned earlier, demographic information, sources of emissions, proximity to hazardous waste, etc. And we can use these to support the necessity and the effectiveness of Class 6 injection well, for example, not only in supporting the application, but also in communicating the benefits that these projects can provide. There are a number of outreach techniques that have been employed. The underlying philosophy for this is early and often. Open communication, listening sessions with the public, reaching out to community organizations, churches, civic groups, environmental groups. So we're guided by information from these data sources, from these reports, and they help us communicate the actual nuts and bolts of the project and its advantages. So there's a lot of misinformation about carbon sequestration, and this can help us to guide that process and make it a little easier, not only on the Class 6 application and the injection itself, but also on the community and help people feel more at ease.
Absolutely. Sounds like a very important part to any project. Well, we are going to wrap things up here, but I just wanted to ask first, what are some topics that you're looking forward to hearing or learning more about at this year's National Carbon Capture Conference?
All of them.
Great answer.
There are so many interesting talks and topics that are going to be covered, and I'm interested in things that are pretty universal. Direct capture is one, implementing pipelines and how we can communicate pipeline safety to the public. But, overall, it's an exciting and interesting technology that we're using. And I'm really passionate about the way that we can benefit society as a whole through these projects.
Great answer. Again, we are joined today by Candy Elliott, Senior Project Geologist at SCS Engineers. Candy, thank you again for joining us on the podcast today, and we look forward to seeing you in Des Moines.
Thank you, Danielle.
And thank you to everyone for tuning into today's podcast. If you want to hear more from Candy, join us on Wednesday, November 8th at 9 a.m. in Des Moines at the National Carbon Capture Conference for her presentation. Until next time.